Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Colorado Fire College. I'm your host, Chris Gay, and this is.
Firefighter EMT Eric Scholl.
And today we're going to be discussing post-traumatic stress disorders. Today we brought Lieutenant Lance Shore with Strasburg Fire to come talk about his experience and what he can bring to the table.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm kind of interested in doing this because there are some very personal things that have happened to me over the last 30 years in the fire service that pertain directly to mental health, post-traumatic stress, those types of things. I myself went through a time where things weren't going well for me, both in my career and at home. I ended up in a place where I had just been promoted to lieutenant and was trying to kind of get a feel for that. Didn't really know how to do that job yet, and was moved from an engine company to a truck company. I've never been in a truck company at all, and it was a real struggle for me to be able to make that switch. At the same time, I had things going on at home that were difficult. My wife and I ended up separating, eventually divorced. I just was not in a very good place. And I found that I was becoming pretty angry. I'd lost all my self-confidence. I was basically not being a nice guy. I was making bad decisions both on the job and in my personal life that were affecting not just me but everybody that I was around, my friends, my coworkers, and it was a pretty bad situation. And I ended up having a couple of friends and a couple of family members say something to me. I had an instance where I had a small run-in with the law. It wasn't really, ended up being a big deal, but it opened my eyes to I was becoming something I didn't want to be. And I was very depressed and had even thought a couple of times about maybe things would be better off if I wasn't around anymore. Fortunately, it never came to that. I was able to understand that it was normal to be in that place. Maybe not normal, maybe that's not the right word, but it was okay to be in that place, and there was a way to get out of it. I got into some counseling, I got into some anger management classes and stuff like that, and it really helped me tremendously to realize, where I was at, that I didn't want to be there, but more importantly, where I did want to be, and how to get to that place. And over about a 3-year period, it changed me a lot. My confidence started to come back. My relationships with people got better. Even some of the people who swore they were never going to talk to me again, we were able to, kind of bury the hatchet, if you will, and get back to a good place. In the end, my wife and I ended up kind of reconciling and so on. We ended up back together. We married each other again, and so it all turned out very, very well. And it was all simply because somebody was able to convince me that it was okay. When we see the things that we see, you go through the things that we go through, trying to manage all of the things. And quite honestly, I was probably promoted a little earlier than I should have been. I was about 8 years into my fire career and only about 3 years into being a career firefighter when I was promoted. And it was probably too quick. I probably wasn't ready when I look back on it. And on top of that, the timing was horrible because of the issues that I had going on at home,
Just
and so on. It just and everything kind of snowballed. And the thing that's interesting to me when I look back on it is the first thing I think is how fast it got out of control. It was like, it went from, I was happy to be promoted, everything was good, my wife was getting ready to have our second child, to, in 6 or 8 months, it was, everything just kind of crumbled.
Did you feel it coming on? I mean, even looking back, can you recognize when that change happened?
Yeah, I do recognize when the change happened. At the time, I don't think that I really noticed it because I was too close to it. But when I look back on it, I can see moments where, I reacted by flying off the handle at something that typically wouldn't have that effect on me, and so I think that deep inside I knew something wasn't right, but I was so close to it that I didn't really recognize it until I got to a point where I was being so unreasonable and being such I really was not being a good guy. And it hit me that I just don't want to be this person anymore. I ended up being in some relationships that I shouldn't have been in, after my wife left me, and I ended up hurting some people that really, to this day, they say you don't ever have any regrets. I don't know if it's a regret or not, but I'm very sorry for how that turned out, because when you look back on it, I just was kind of a selfish ass, if that makes, and I didn't want to be that person anymore. And so, like I said, with help from some friends and some family members and being able to accept that, hey, I'm in a bad spot, I need help, I can't figure this out on my own, I was able to do that and was able to use the resources that were there to make that happen.
And part of that was normalizing that it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
Once you were able to accept that, what
Right.
routes of treatment were you seeking?
Just learning how to deal with it. Most of it was I had a very, very good counselor that really helped me see that, all of the things that I was worried about and all the things that I was angry about really were kind of made up in my head. Because of my lack of confidence, I made up a bunch of problems that, most of them weren't really there. And the ones that were so blown out of proportion that it was really making my life miserable. And that a lot of it was, especially towards the ends as things snowballed, I was bringing a lot of that on myself.
Self-sabotage.
Absolutely. And so, just a lot of the counseling to get out of your own head and know, hey, it's okay. You can fix it, and you don't have to be angry about it. And because I think the reason that I became angry is because I knew there was something not right, but I didn't know what to do about it.
Right.
She helped me do that. She said, hey, she really made me, I shouldn't say she made me, she gave me the opportunity to really look in the mirror and see myself and see where I was and compare that to what I thought I wanted to be. And at that point, they obviously did not match up at all.
Right.
So with that, you saw treatment, you started seeing progress.
Mm-hmm.
Was it one of those things that you thought, I can go to 3 sessions and I'm done? Or is it something that's like, you gotta be committed to?
We set out from the start to do an 18-month program.
Okay, wow.
And it ended up being, I was with her for almost 3 years. On top of that, I took a 6-month anger management class, which really helped me understand why. That's when I really started to learn about personality types and why you react the way that you do to certain things, and how. It was like I always felt during that time. I always felt like everything that everybody did was designed to make me upset.
Right.
I learned real fast. Well, first of all, it ain't all about you, dummy. Secondly, that nobody gets up in the morning and says, to myself, what can I do to piss that guy off? That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Things
Did you
happen.
recognize any triggers?
I think that when I got to a point that I couldn't talk and it would build up inside of me, and then anytime somebody tried to tell me that I was doing something wrong or that I needed to do something differently, even on the fire ground, if we were at a training and somebody was like, hey, I've got a better idea, why don't you try this? I immediately became defensive. I didn't want to learn. Mm-hmm. I took it as an attack. And it was, just like I said, I don't know any way to put it. It was just so opposite of where I had always been and what I thought, and where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's contrary to everything I've ever seen, too. I mean, for what you're describing, it's a complete Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Or like almost like a wounded animal where like, there's something going on, you have damage, and so when someone comes close or anything, then you react by attacking, basically, is kind of...
That's actually a great
sense
analogy.
it is, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And the only two people that really knew how dark my life had become were my older sister and unfortunately my wife saw a lot of it. The one thing I am very grateful for is that for the most part I was able to keep my children separated from that. There were a couple of times where
That's an impressive feat, though, to say that out
where
loud.
I got a little bit angry and I probably said something that I shouldn't have. I'm sure that that they've seen me angry. Obviously, my son has seen me. I'm sure he's seen me throw something or punch a wall or something like that, which now wouldn't be a big deal, but when you're 4 years old,
Some scary
that's a
stuff.
problem.
Yeah.
So, and he and I have had to go through some reconciliation. There was some time when Kate and I were still split that he didn't want to come to my house.
Yeah.
It would be my week or my night or whatever, and he wouldn't want to come. And there was probably a 8 to 12 month period when he was 8 or 9 years old where he would not come to my house.
That's got to be tough.
It was, and it was hard, but by that point I had recovered enough to be able to say, okay, I get it. I don't want to push him. If I push him, it'll be worse. I got to just let him work through it. Just let him know that I'm here and he's welcome anytime. And eventually, it came back around, and now we've been in a good spot for a while. So.
That's impressive progress.
It is, and it's difficult for him. He's on the spectrum. He's very, very high functioning, and he's very, very intelligent. But to this day, there are still things that he has internalized so much that it's hard for him sometimes, and we'll talk about it. So, in some ways, I feel responsible for putting him in that place, but. As my counselor said, I'm just one piece of that. He's going to have a lot of that anyway, just because of the way his brain functions. And so I've learned to kind of, well, two things. I've learned, one, that 100% of it is not my fault. Some of it is, and I own that, but it's not all my fault. And second, there's not anything I can do about that part of it now. It's about here forward. And once you realize that, it makes it a little bit easier because... that's the absolute truth. You can't change what happened yesterday. All
Was
you
that
can do
part
is
hard to
about
let go, though?
It was very hard to let go. Absolutely. I don't know if you know anything about firefighters, especially younger guys, but we're pretty prideful, and I was too. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear that I was being that guy and that I had to change things and that, hey, you need to let go of that. Well, don't tell me what I need to do. That type of thing. And so. To be able to get through that was, I'm pretty proud of it, but I also understand that there's no way I get there without the help and support of a lot of people. Right. My support network, I have a very large family that's very supportive. I have a lot of friends in the fire service that were very supportive. And then I have a very close-knit group of friends all the way back to junior high school that also helped me quite a bit. So, and that's another very big part of it, is you have to understand that not only is it okay not to be okay, but it's okay to need help and to need support. And the more of a support foundation that you have, the better it is.
Did you try medications?
I was on some antidepressants for a while. That's about as far as it went. nothing, really over the top, just some standard antidepressive type stuff.
No Zyprexa says Tic Tacs.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
Well, I personally consider you a success story because you realized that there was a problem, you addressed the problem, you made amends with people, even though it took an extended period of time, 3 years to get through it. You kept at it. You stayed committed to getting better.
right.
And after you realized that it's okay not to be okay, that process, the healing process, was able to start. Unfortunately, a lot of people, statistically, about 46.8% of firefighters have suicidal ideations.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there's a statistical anomaly when it comes to suicides in firefighters, that they're one of the highest rates of suicide across the board. EMS being close second, and police usually being pretty parallel to fire. But the impact of that can be long lasting for everyone left behind.
For sure.
How can people better address some of these things so that we don't have suicides, especially in our own firehouse? The last thing you want to lose is a brother, a pack of 4 that you run with on a regular basis. How can we prevent that in the firehouse?
I think the number one answer for that is just understanding that, the bravado and the pride sometimes needs to go away, and you need to be able to say, hey, man, are you okay? And you need honest answers, and you need to know that it is okay to be in that place. Not, and every situation is different. Sometimes it's just because of the things that we see. I mean, over 30 years, I guarantee you there are a whole bunch of things I wish I could forget. And we all have that, and we're all affected by it differently. But I think it's very important that leadership understand that it's okay, and we need to have resources in place. Unfortunately, now we have a lot more resources than we did even when I was going through it. I mean, this was 20 years ago that I was having these issues.
And there's also been somewhat of a culture change among admins where it's no longer so punitive. I mean, I
Right.
remember back in the day, you told somebody you're suicidal, you were off
your
the line.
job, yeah.
Yeah, you were
And,
off
and you're taking fit for duty tests, and
Yep.
you're yes, absolutely.
re-earning your right to have the seat you had already.
Right. And so, and that's a good thing to have that. It's almost completely switched to where, in a lot of ways, if you're not doing that now, you're not paying attention. You're not a good organization to work with if you don't understand that this is where we're at. It's become such a big talking point and such a
Almost a movement.
Absolutely. I think that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to suicides, I think everyone has, whether it be the first layer, second layer, third layer of their social dynamics, had someone commit suicide. One of the toughest things about that is bouncing back. I know a lot of people hold, whether it be self-guilt or simulation to the situation, but I know it's one of those things that has a compounding effect on firefighters. And I believe, no matter what the worst call you ran, that will always have more precedence in your mind.
Yeah.
I think changing some of the dynamics of how that's approached needs to be researched more. But I definitely think that it's made progress, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of the bigger things that we struggle with in the fire service is mental health, and it probably will always be that way. But we've come so far, and even just, I don't know, the past 10 years or so. But yeah, I think that the more we start to get people to actually speak up and say something, the more people realize, oh, there's actually a lot of people that are going through this too. Where before you kind of, just because of the mentality and everything, you're like, oh, because we help people, we're not the ones that need help. So it's hard to get that through your head and actually say hey, this is going on. And then now that people are more comfortable, I feel like we're starting to see, oh wow, this is a big problem, and we've had ways to make it a little bit better at least. So we're going in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
I know you and I talked offline that we had both utilized Foundation 1023 at one point in our lives. I think you had utilized it before I even met you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I actually had to go through it to complete paramedic school because my ER doctor pulled me aside and told me I was fucking up, and I completely melted down in ER Bay 2 at St. Anthony's. Yeah. And let me tell you, there's nothing more embarrassing than having a full meltdown in a public ER. But right. She told me flat out that she was going to fail me out of paramedic school if I didn't go seek help. So she actually made a condition of me progressing professionally of where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I've always chased my paramedic to get a career fire job, and that's how we originally met. Yep. You had met me at that very cusp of it all.
Right, right.
But that's one of the things I wanted to mention is that there was a different dynamic in that firehouse when we first met, especially since you were at Station 1 and I was at Station 2. You were one of the most supportive people, no matter what struggle I was going through. When my station was riding my ass, mocking me, belittling me over the situation, and then you'd come over for a training, and you were like a ray of sunshine in my day because you were the only person encouraging me and telling me I could do it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that, and I try to do. I've run a couple of officer development classes, and I'm trying to get some of that set up again. Mm-hmm. But I think two of the big things that for me that I like to try to instill in new officers and officers that come to me with, wanting to know from my experiences and stuff like that is one, don't complain to me about how somebody can't do something and just write them off. If they're here and they're giving the effort, then your job is to support them and teach them the best you can. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never really understood the okay, he's going to try it twice, and if that person can't do it, then we're going to start, really right. I understand at some point there has to be progress, absolutely. But mm-hmm. let's do everything we can to make that happen. Yeah. I feel like that's part of our job as officers, mm-hmm. especially at the company level, is, hey, we need to give you every support and every opportunity that you can. Yes, at some point there has to be some obvious progress forward, or we got to do something else. But mm-hmm. for the most part, I've had very, very few that have just not been able to make it if you show the support. Secondly, I think as an officer, you have to be you have to try to put in as much effort as you can to make your people feel comfortable. The number one thing I want my people to be able to do is come to me with anything. Mm-hmm. I want them to feel comfortable with, hey, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, mm-hmm. whether they're having a problem at the firehouse or at home, whatever it is, I don't, even if they're having, where it's like I had a bad discussion with the chief and I don't feel very good about it. I want them to be able to come to me and know that I'm going to support them, mm-hmm. and I'm going to trust them, and hopefully they'll trust me with that, and we'll try to make it better. I don't ever want anybody to come into my firehouse and be miserable doing their job, because that's not what we're about. That's not what it's supposed to be, right? So,
what would you tell new firefighters that are coming into the industry and how to mitigate or prepare themselves for handling some of these issues?
One, as we say, and I think we're doing a better job than we used to. I think we used to not do a very good job of preparing our recruits for exactly what they were getting into. Mm-hmm. We could do the measurable, tangible skills, but we didn't do a very good job of, these are the things you're going to see.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And this is how everybody's going to feel a little bit differently, but you will see things that will affect you. Yeah. I think we're doing a better job of that. At least I like to think we are. And so that's number one, is, hey, these are the things that you're going to see, and it will affect you in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's normal. Again, it's okay not to be okay, because we see things that
people shouldn't have to see.
Absolutely. And then the other part of it is to find that mentor, or find that person that you can go to with those things. To this day, I still have one of those people that is at our organization, and every place I've been, I've had one, sometimes two of those people that I can trust with whatever, and I talk to that person almost all the time.
Now, are these more of a personal relationship, or is this part of the peer support team?
These are more personal relationships, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic, because this person, we have a personal friendship, but they are also part of the command structure in our organization. And so we have to make sure that we have a very good understanding of where one ends and the other begins.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but it's funny, we joke all the time that, you know, on the times when one of us is on vacation, one of us is working from home, or one of us is, I mean, I talk to her more when she's not there than I do when she's actually there, because, and it's everything from daily frustrations to, hey, you know, we really have an issue that we need to deal with. I'm struggling. What's your suggestion? Type of thing. But I encourage everybody to find someone that they can be like, all right. Because sometimes you even have to say things, you get frustrated and you have to say stuff that you know is probably not okay,
Yeah.
but it has to come out so that you can go on and deal with it appropriately. You know what I mean? Kind of just vent and get it out,
Yep.
and then we can move on. And so try to find that person that will help you do that. And it can't always be your spouse. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes you need that layer of separation. though.
Sometimes you do, though, because even after 30 years, as hard as she tries and as hard as she has been able to, as well as she has been able to adjust to life with firemen, there are just days that she's not going to understand. If you're not in it, you don't know. And, you know, and that's okay. That's why we have each other, and that's why we become so tight-knit, and that's why I say, you know, find that person that's your I don't want to say partner in crime, but that person that you can lean on.
That you're
and
trauma
trust.
bonded with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And going back to the first thing you said about how we need to do better at preparing people, that's a huge thing that for me, I noticed when I got into it, because, like, for instance, in EMT school, and I get why they do this, but you do your scenarios and stuff, and as long as you do the right thing, the patient always gets better. But then when you get into real life, you know, all of a sudden you're doing everything great, and you're like, why are they
still
getting
dying?
worse?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what's going on? So when I did some instructing for EMT class, that's the one thing that I always tried to do, is when we did, like, cardiac arrest scenarios, if there was a group that was doing really well, I would just have the patient get worse and worse and worse, and I'd be like, all right, you arrive at the hospital and they're pronounced dead. And then I'd ask, what could you have done differently? And you can see everyone kind of thinking, and they're like trying to think of something they missed. And then what I was looking for was for someone to say that, no, there was nothing. Like, we did everything the way we were supposed to. And what I wanted to kind of get them to understand is, or what I told them was, that you should measure your success by the effort you put into trying to save a life, not by the number of lives you save. Because if you try and do it on that, you're going to have a long, hard career.
That's actually an interesting perspective. I'd never thought of it from that point of view.
Yeah. And I mean, because I wish that someone had done that for me when I was in EMT school, so that way it would have kind of, because there's a lot of confusion when you're
Well,
new.
the thing that I tell people too is that you are there to make it better and do the best that you can. But things that are out of your control are not your responsibility, right? And we come up against those. We go whether it's medical or especially fire. Fire doesn't like you. It's not going to cooperate.
No.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there are things that we can make it, you know, better, and we can do our absolute best. But there are times where, you know, we can't make it all perfect. It's just not going to happen. That's just not the nature of what we do. We make it as best we can, and we have to be able to feel okay with that, because that's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. The past 2 sets, I've pronounced somebody each set and then dropped a structure fire today. And I'll be honest, I don't think any of them went the way I wanted to, but everyone went home safe, and I'm taking solace in that.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
sometimes it's the little wins.
Absolutely.
Yep, baby steps are a thing. So, you know, and hopefully you could find those relationships that last forever. I mean, I have a friend of mine who I went through Academy at Arvada with, and right in the middle of all of my turmoil, if you will, I got demoted from lieutenant back to firefighter, and I moved stations, and I happened to get placed on his crew, and we had always been very good together and pretty close, and we were on the same group together in Academy. So, and to this day, I know that I can call him. We won't see each other for a year or two, and then we'll go to a function, or we'll go to our families are kind of intertwined, and we have a lot of mutual friends and so on. And I'll see him after a year or two, handshake and a hug, and it's right back to where we always were. And I know that he's one of those people that even though I haven't talked to him in 3 years, if I had an issue, I could call him tomorrow and he'd do anything for me. So, when you find those things, it's a good thing. That's what you're looking for,
Yeah.
I agree. Well, I know one of the biggest red flags of mental health and post-traumatic stress is loss of sleep, when it's starting to affect your sleep. And that's not only just whether you're having nightmares, whether you're getting complete sleep, whether you can fall into REM, or whether you're sleeping for 2 hours, waking up for 6, and then catching a midday nap just to make sure you got enough sleep to keep going.
Right.
That's obviously one of the biggest red flags. Past that, what other red flags you guys think are the things that people should be looking out for?
Not acting typical, you know.
So that change in personality?
Absolutely. People have traits. People have we're kind of creatures of habit. We tend to have certain reaction. We are, when you look at somebody when you're at work and you think they're not being themselves. Usually they come in here, they're talking, they're asking everybody what's going on. They've been sitting in the corner for 6 hours not saying anything. That's not normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those traits change. The behaviors change. Especially when it's more negatively. They're quicker to get angry. They're
More volatile.
More volatile. Yeah. They're negative about everything. They just, it feels like they don't want to be there. Those are things that stick out to me.
Yeah. And then I would say it kind of goes with the sleep thing, but just feeling like you can't turn off, like just this anxiety that's kind of there, like adrenaline rush basically, that just doesn't go away, because that's like what happened to me. But that's, I think, why it got so bad, was because I didn't recognize that at first, because I was new at the time. So I thought I was just excited to be starting this new thing, this new part of my life. But the problem was that I'd go home and I was still like all shaky, and I was like, and it did not go away. And
I think they call that hypervigilance.
Yeah. But like I totally went over my head, because I was like, I'm just super excited about this. And then it started getting to be that bad anxiety. I was like, okay, this is actually very uncomfortable. I don't like this at all. And then it just, by the time I started to realize, okay, this is not that, this is a problem. It was already, I was so far in, and then I just got exhausted. And that's where the depression comes in, because you're just worn out from being that way 24/7. So yeah, that's something for me that would have helped if I had seen or knew about, back when it started.
Unfortunately, sometimes you don't notice it. Like with me, I was saying, I wasn't realizing it until I was so far, to the dark side, so to speak, that somebody had to basically shake me by the shoulders and be like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And that happens a lot too. Sometimes you just don't recognize it, until you're, and that's why it's good for, and that's how this whole thing with my current person that I lean on at the firehouse, I had it happened to be the 5th anniversary of my mother's death, and I just said to her in the morning, I said, look, this is what's going on in my life right now. If you notice that I'm not acting right or something's not right, just say something to me and I'll take a minute. And this is why, explain to her about what the day was all about, but no problem, and so, and then just from there on, it's kind of been, we've kind of had that going on. So
right.
It's good to have that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of the things I want to make sure is that anybody who's watching or listening that knows, A, they're not alone, B, help is out there, and C, the first step is realizing that you want to get help. If you don't want to get help, there's nobody that can help you out of that dark hole until you realize you want to get out of the dark hole. With that being said, I want everyone to know nationwide, you can pick up any phone and dial 988 for the crisis line, and somebody will be there to help you, 24/7, 365. If you're in Colorado, Foundation 1023 is another option. They'll get you put in touch with a very private counselor who has a background in emergency services. They will meet you in discreet places, so you're not meeting at a psych ward or the mental health clinic that everybody else is going to. They'll meet you in an office building with no address or a coffee shop, but it's very private and it gives you the ability to get some of the help that you need.
And I think the first, I think it's 3 or first couple or few of the visits that you do are free.
Correct.
So
They're covered by donations that are philanthropy funded.
So, I mean, and please do, because the other thing that has happened to me is I had a very, very close friend of mine that did not do that. And he got into a place where some of similar things to what I had, some very different things to what I had, but he was, having problems with his marriage. He was having problems at work. And he was one of those that was very good at hiding that. Out in public, he was the cheery, happy, smiley guy, and so much so that I had talked to him on a Friday, and he had told me that he was having some struggles, but it wasn't a big deal, and that he was going to get through it. And we had talked about we were both motorcycle guys. We had talked about, all right, well, next week we'll go for a ride and we'll kind of get some wind therapy and things will be better. And if you need something over the weekend or whatever, give me a call. So I knew he was having some issues, but even me, knowing him probably as well as anybody on earth, had no idea the place that he was in. And so that was Friday. Monday I tried to call him. He didn't answer the phone. Well, I found out that afternoon that he had taken his life. He had taken his own life. It was very unfortunate. It was sad. I found out later that he had tried. I can't say he didn't reach out at all. He had been working with a counselor. His doctor tried to change his antidepressant meds, but his big thing is that, as you mentioned, he wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
In order to try to sleep better, he started drinking. Unfortunately, there was a history of alcoholism in his family, so he had never been a big drinker before, so that never really even crossed my mind. And in the 2 or 3 months leading up to that, I had not witnessed any kind of behavior like that. 3 months before this took place, there's a whole group of us from the firehouse and my family, and he was one of them. We all went for my 50th birthday out in Vegas, and we had a great time. I had no idea. He really did a good job of hiding all of that, and I felt, you mentioned what it does to the people that are left behind. I struggled with that for a long time. I beat myself up for not knowing that was going on, and I also was angry at him for not calling me and for not talking to me about it.
Do you think that would have made it harder for you, though, if he called you, talked to you, and still took his life?
I don't know that it would have, because understanding, because of what I've been through, I understand that, yes, reaching out is a huge part of it. But you also have to be ready. And if he wasn't ready to take the help, like I said, some things that are out of your control are not your responsibility, right? But it took me a while to remember that. And so I was mad at myself for not seeing it, and I was angry at him for not letting me in, for not telling me, for not, letting me at least try to help him. And I struggled with that for a long time. And I also struggled with just it's an emptiness that you just can't reconcile, because you can't get the answers. There are so many questions that you're never to this day. I got 20 questions I want to ask him about, what the F, man. But you just have to get to a point where you realize that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I still to this day have moments. That was almost 7 years ago, and to this day, I still have moments where I'm like, just so angry about the whole thing.
But one of the biggest things that I can say publicly is you have not let his image or his name be forgotten. And I give you so much credit for that you continuously commemorate and memorialize him for the person that he was in your life.
Well, and I think that, you know, that's a very important thing to me. It's one of the ways I fill that void. I also, it's that way for his children. I mean, our children respectively each called, like his daughters call me uncle all the time, and I interact with them at least once a month, and I feel like, if nothing else for their sake, they need to know that, you know, we're not going to forget about him, and that he does matter to us. And, you know, his oldest is funny because their big thing that they bonded over was hockey. He was a huge Avalanche fan, and so there'll be times where we'll text back and forth. We'll watch an entire hockey game, texting back and forth. She lives in Wisconsin, so she's not close physically, but we'll text through a whole hockey game.
It's awesome
you know,
you have that relationship with her.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, when we were together when they were young, you know, when our kids were little, we were together all the time. And we really did have that. They really were family, and so and they still are, you know. And you know, it's kind of ironic because when his kids were 12 and 10, they're a little bit older than my children. He said to me, you know, if anything ever happens, you're the one I want taking care of my kids. He made his youngest is my goddaughter, so I take that seriously too. You know, it's what he want. Not only to let them see that we're not going to forget him, he's still important to people, but he asked me to make sure they were okay. And even though they're in their 30s now, you know, that's still something that...
It was a lifelong promise.
Yeah, well, I'm pushing 60 years old, and the role that my father still plays in my life is huge. And for them not to have that, you know, and for him having at one point, well previous to what happened, asking me to fill that role if he was ever gone, that's important to me, you know. They need that. And I try to put myself in their shoes, and I will never really know, but I can imagine. Yeah. I know what it did to me, you know, and so, but the point of that is I think that, you know, as we talked about earlier, two different endings because of two different things. I was lucky enough to be told and to recognize that that's not who you want to be. You can change it, and I allowed that to happen, and I took advantage of the resources. And as you said, for most people, that's a success story. He was the opposite. He didn't open up. He didn't let anybody in. He didn't take advantage of that. He decided that if he drank more, he would go numb. And that's where he ended up. You know, so it's become a big message for me to say, you know what, that's not how it has to be. You can recover from whatever it is.
You're living proof.
You know, I am one example. There's others out there. I run into them from time to time when I go to conferences or whatever. You know, it's not like I'm one in a million. I'm one in, you know, at this point I would say I'm probably 1 in 100. Hopefully that number will continue to come down. But it's starting to become more and more where you're hearing about the success stories and people getting better, which is good. But like you said earlier, we're not there yet.
I mean, I know we're only the 13th day of January of 2026, but I've already seen a line of death for both police and fire from suicide. So we're definitely not there yet, but I think we're making good progress. And I think today's episode is definitely another step in the right direction of letting people know it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help, and these are some of the resources available.
Yeah, the fire service is a very culture-based entity, so it's very hard to break habits and stuff that the way we used to do things. But yeah, I think we're
I
going
think the
in the right
dynamics
direction.
are changing though.
Yeah,
In the right trajectory.
yeah.
Well, and I think that we're becoming willing to educate ourselves on this side of it.
Yeah.
You know, because it is obviously a big part of our business, and you know, we talk about brotherhood, and we talk about how we spend a third of our life with each other, and we become very close and so on. And so, you know, what bigger service can we do each other than to be there,
Right.
and not just to serve our community, but to serve each other and make things better for each other. That's that's important.
Yeah, very.
Awesome. Well, I think that covers it for today. You guys have anything you want to add?
No,
Not really. Take advantage of the services. They're out there. There are resources all over the place, and all you have to do is ask one person, and the ball will get rolling. But
Make that ask.
you have to, because, like you said, with Sean, I had no idea. If he doesn't say something, I don't know. Now, it's not always that way, you know. Most of the people, you can see a change in behavior and so on, and you can ask. But again, somebody has to be willing, and they have to know that it's okay to not be okay. And I think that we start that by, like I said, in Academy, when we're talking to our recruits, that's where it starts.
You can always be an advocate for somebody else. You know, if you've been through hell and back, if you sat in the dark alone. I remember sitting on a bumper once where Lieutenant Charlie Quayle came up to me, asked how I was doing. I said, I'm in the dark. He goes, well, I'll sit with you in the dark then until it's better. You know, so you can definitely advocate for the people around you. You don't have to be a professional to sit there and listen to somebody for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I promise if you sit and listen for 10 minutes, you will change their life. You will change their day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes all you need to know is that somebody cares, and that somebody is there, and that somebody will listen. Absolutely. Makes a huge difference. So,
Well, thank you for watching another episode of Colorado Fire College. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below, and we'll be happy to get back to you. We'll be doing another episode shortly on triggers and different treatments, such as ketamine and psychedelics, and how they're emerging in the current market as showing promising ways to deal with massive depression and post-traumatic stress by resetting the brain on a chemical level, a molecular level. It still has a ton of research that's coming out, but it's showing a lot of promise, and that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it, because, you know, I'm all about the right treatment for the right person. And, you know, I'll be honest, when I started getting help, I think they put me on 5 different medications. I don't think any of them made me feel better.
Yeah.
So if there's something natural that'll do it, we should explore that. But thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you next time.
it,
Bye.